You're listening to the weekly Parsha Podcast with Ari Goldwag, recorded with Hashem's never-ending assistance in Ramat Shemesh, Israel, 5785, 2025. Before I begin speaking about Parsha's Behaaloscha, I would like to say thank you to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for the amazing nisim that are going on right now in Eretz Yisrael. We woke up at 3 in the morning. That's why this is a little bit late. And we didn't know what it was going to be, and we still don't know what it's going to be, but we do know that Hashem is protecting us. He's put in the minds of our leaders and so many amazing people the ideas of how to protect Am Yisrael. And I'd like to share with you a medrash which, as I'm reading it just now over again, I'm noticing the amazing connection to what happened last night. And the Pesach is talking about shtei chatzotzos kesef. There were these two silver trumpets, and they were used in the service of the Beis Hamikdash, and they were used, as far as I understand, they were used when Am Yisrael needed to pause and if there was a time of tzara, a time of difficulty, they would blow on the chatzotzos. They would be used to bring attention, bring Am Yisrael to attention. They would be used to help us pause. And I'd like to talk a little bit about that and the way the Medrash talks about it. And I'd also like to talk about, we're going to see that it's connected somehow to the middle of the night. We woke up in the middle of the night, 3 a.m. We were awoken from our sleep to a siren. We didn't know what was going on. It became clear that we're attacking Iran. Amazing. And there's a pause that happens in the middle of the night. Chatzos Laila. Let's see what this is talking about. Aselecha, says the Medrash, in Parsha's Behaaloscha, Atam mishtamish behen sh'atem melech, v'hinachem mishtamish ben el Dovid Hamelech. King David, like Moshe Rabbeinu, was a king. Moshe was like a king to Am Yisrael. He led them out of Egypt. He became their leader for 40 years in the wilderness. We need to understand what is the concept of a king. We're going to try to understand at depth. Moshe used the chatzotzos, he used the trumpets, and Dovid Hamelech used the trumpets as well. These two individuals were unique because they were the king. They were able to use the trumpets. They were able to call attention, call Am Yisrael to attention, bring them to a state of submission to Hashem. Shenemar vayamdu halevim, Pasuk says, al omdam hashir mishoyer v'chatzotzos machtzrim. Not sure where this pasuk is, because it doesn't give the reference, but it's supposed to be speaking about Dovid Hamelech, King David, that he used the chatzotzos to get them to the Levites would stand. There's a pause that's going on here. There's a standing still. When they would stand on their place where they stood, they would make music. They would sing. They would blow the chatzotzos. They would blow the trumpets. Chatzotzos, the trumpets that were in the temple, they were put into storage. They were put away. Rav understands that the chatzotzos were not used, the ones that were used in the Mishkan, it seems, but rather King David used a kinnor. So we're going to start to understand here, there's something about a kinnor in modern Hebrew means a violin, but classically the word kinnor means is more like a harp. Famous idea. Dovid Hamelech would use a kinnor. What would he do? And we're going to read two different midrashim. One is a medrash here in our Parsha Behaaloscha, referring to the chatzotzos, and we need to come back to the chatzotzos and understand the concept of the trumpets and how they relate to a king. But the other concept is a concept which is also brought in the Medrash in Rus, and I'd like to read that to you as well, which speaks of Dovid Hamelech using the kinnor, using a harp, which would play at midnight. Something happens in the middle of the night, and we'll see that there's a few places where the middle of the night plays an important role. And it's not a coincidence that last night in the middle of the night we were awoken. as justice was being brought to the great-great-grandchildren of Haman, who wanted to bring about destruction of Am Yisrael, he was hanged on the very thing, on the very tree that he built, the very hangman's noose that he had made for Mordechai. But let's come back to this. Dovid Hamelech, he would wake up from this harp. Ura kevaidi, ura haneva v'kuna, or ura shachar. He would get up early in the morning. He would be awoken, or he would wake up either to play the harp, or the harp played by itself, as we'll see. King David had a harp which was hanging above his head. And when midnight would come, the wind would blow through, a northerly wind would blow through the harp, and it would play on its own. Immediately King David, it was his nightly wake up, his alarm would ring. They would get up, him and all of the students who were involved in the study of Torah. They would work hard and they would not allow themselves to fall asleep. They would learn until the morning. It's very interesting. He would say, that's why he would say, awaken my honor, awaken. Usually, the morning is what wakes up people. The morning, the sun rises, the light shines in through the window, you wake up. But David Hamelech says, it's different for me. I wake up the morning. I'm the one who wakes up way before the morning. The harp wakes me up. The music wakes me up. So we need to understand, first of all, what's the concept of music waking him up? What does that mean? It's happening at midnight. And what is it? How does that connect to learning Torah all night until the morning? What's the idea? Okay, so I'd like to skip over here. There's a similar medrash here in Behaaloscha, but it's a little bit sharper in the medrash in Rus. The medrash says like this: Chatzis Laila Akum, Lahoides Lach Al Mishpitei Tzidkecha. In the middle of the night, I'll get up in order to thank you. It's the two psukim next to each other. Ira Shachar, I'll get up in the morning. I'm going to get up to thank you in regards to the laws, the statutes of your righteousness. Okay? So, until now we understand that he's getting up to learn. Rav Pincha b'shem Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. Rav Pincha said in the name of Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, Kinor v'nevel hayu nesunim in Rosh Shel David. David Hamelech had a harp which was above his head. In this version, he would get up in the middle of the night, at midnight, he would get up and he would play the harp. He would actually play. He would sing, he would get up and he would sing about the judgments that were brought upon Pharaoh. And we sing about the judgments that were brought upon the Ayatollah. Pasuk says, interesting, it brings a pasuk, I think this is by Sarah Imenu. He wakes up in the middle of the night. He had taken Sarah to be his wife. And he had these terrible afflictions upon his body. And he realized that he had done an Avera, he had done a sin by taking Avram Avinu's wife. But when did it happen? It happened in the middle of the night. There was righteousness that you did with Abraham and Sarah. Another thing that happened in the middle of the night, also in Egypt. Right? What happened at midnight? In the middle of the night in Egypt, on the 15th day of Nisan, as the Jewish people were ready to leave Egypt, the firstborns of the Egyptians, they all died. The firstborns of the Jewish people were saved. Right? There were two commandments the Jewish people received. They did at that time on the night of the 14th going into the 15th. And they were saved because of it. The blood, the blood of the Pesach offering, the carbon Pesach, and the blood of Mila. They had that night, or a few days earlier, I'm not sure which, they had received their circumcision so that they'd be able to bring the carbon. The blood was mixed up. So King David is saying, I'm looking back, I'm waking up, and I'm singing about something else that happened at this time. I'm learning Torah, or I'm singing, but it's about what happened at midnight. The destruction of my enemies. The justice was served for what they had done wrong. And we did what's right. We served Hashem through our blood, as the Pasuk says, where is it? Pasuk says, which we quote on Pesach itself, we bring this verse. Hashem sees us in our blood, and Hashem says, you will live through your blood, right? Which is interesting, because the Pasuk is referring to a woman who's having her cycle, and right, what happens in a cycle? When a woman menstruates, so there's a pause in her ability to have a child. It's the part of the cycle which seems to be like the blood is coming out. It seems to be no life. But the Pasuk says, through that cycle, that's how you live. The cycle is just a cycle. The blood gives way to the potential for life once again. Interesting. He brings here one more thing which I'd like to read. There was another thing that happened in the middle of the night, and that has to do with Rus. Mishpatim al davar achem al mishpatei tzikacha mishpatim shebeis al amayno moyavim tzedakah shesizim zekene v'im zekenti. There were halachas that had to do with moyavim and amoynim, right? We know that King David Hamelech, his great-grandmother was Rus. He was born on Shavuos, which is why we read the book of Rus. One of the reasons why we read Rus on Shavuos. David was born on Shavuos. His great-grandmother, she was somebody who came into the Jewish people, and it could have been that she would be forbidden. The Pasuk says that an Ammoni and a Moavis, she was from the Moavi people, Moabite woman. So they're not allowed to marry into the Jewish people. But the Torah says Moavi, and we know it means Moavi v'lo Moaviyah. A male Moabite person is not allowed to marry in, but a woman is allowed to marry in. So that was a halacha which was revealed at that time. So that's an incredible kindness of Hashem. David Hamelech, once this halacha became known, David Hamelech became no longer a problematic person. People thought that he was not able to really be part of Am Yisrael. He was rejected because of it. But the halacha became known that it is permitted. His great-grandmother had married Boaz, it wasn't a problem. And there was a tzedakah, a righteousness that happened with his great-grandmother and his great-grandfather between Rus and Boaz. Because what happens in the Pasuk tells us, I'm going back to the first message because it brings the whole Pasuk. It was the middle of the night. Boaz realizes that there's a woman sitting or lying there at the end of his bed. He didn't know how she got there. And he was stunned. He didn't know if she was some kind of angel of destruction, or if she was a human being. He says, who are you? And she says, I'm Rus. He says to her, sleep here tonight. And, of course, he has an amazing gvura. He knows that they're destined for each other. He could have told himself, look, I'm not married, she's not married. But he didn't tell himself that. Instead, he said, let's wait until we have a proper marriage before we consecrate this. And amazing gvura, but another amazing gvura the Medrash points out is as follows. Listen to this carefully. I'm sorry. You know, if anyone would suddenly find a stranger at the end of their bed, lying there, their automatic reaction would be to curse the person, to say something negative to the person. What are you doing here? But Boaz didn't do that. He blessed her. He said, blessed are you too, Hashem, my daughter, my dear woman. He didn't speak to her negatively, which requires he was shocked. A pasuk says in Mishlei, very interesting. All these things there's like a whole concept that's going on here. We're going to see the idea, but listen to this. The thing that makes a person fear can make a person stumble, can be a stumbling block for him. But a person who trusts in Hashem, so that person has a growth that happens, or has a prosperity in his life. What's the concept? What's the idea here? Brings another example of this. You see that Yaakov, when he realized that he had given the blessings, when Yitzchak realized he had given the blessings to Yaakov instead of Esav, so he shook, he was nervous. He also had this charada. And then when he realized what happens, he said, Gam Baruch Yeh, instead of cursing Yaakov for having stolen the blessings, for having tricked him, he says, he'll be blessed. What's going on here at the middle of the night? Coming back to Rus, coming back to Paro, coming back to the Jewish people as they leave the Exodus, coming back to Dovid Hamelech as he plays the kinnor, as he plays his harp, as he learns the Torah from that moment. And coming back to the Chatzotzros, the trumpets that the Leviim would blow and Moshe Rabbeinu used and King David used. A king uses these things. What's the idea? What is the concept that is the string, the chut hameshulash, the string the concept that goes through them all of these ideas. And I believe that the Medrash is pointing out something very deep to us, which has to happen for us as we experience what's going on in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. waking up. Or for some of you, it was the middle of the night, it was towards the beginning of the night. For us, 3 a.m., East Coast, 8 p.m. There's a wake-up. There's a wake-up that happens in the charada, in the sudden waking up. You wake up and you're like, what's going on? And suddenly it's like, everything is changing. Something's going on. You don't know what to believe. You don't know what to feel. You don't know what to think, but there's a moment of pause. That's what I want to focus on. There's a moment of pause. There's a shake-up in midnight. It's the darkest moment of the night. It's the deepest part of your sleep. That's when the Becharim die. That's when the enemies are destroyed. That's when the military leaders are killed in the middle of the night. That's when a nuclear reactor is destroyed. Haman comes also in the middle of the night to try to get permission from Achashverosh. What's the pasuk? I can't remember the exact wording, but the Shnas HaMelech, the sleep of Achashverosh, couldn't sleep in the middle of the night. There's something that happens in the middle of the night. There's a shake-up. There's a shake-up. And there's a pause. And there's a moment of a switchover. You know, Pasuk says, the Chazal say, that there are three things that come with Hesach Hadas. There are three things that come where our mind is on pause. That's what Hesach Hadas means. I stop thinking. My mind stops evaluating. I'm stunned. One of them is Mashiach. Mashiach comes in a stunning moment, in a stunning turnaround. Think of Haman and Achashverosh, and now all of a sudden he's leading Mordechai on the horse instead of putting him up on the gallows, and he himself ends up on the gallows. It was a stunning turnaround. A stunning turnaround. Paro is trying to prevent Am Yisrael from going out of Egypt, and there's a stunning turnaround. At midnight, there's a moment of pause. All of the firstborns die. And Am Yisrael in that pause is doing mitzvahs, bringing the blood, and realizing that that which seems like a negative thing, the blood, which seems to represent death, is actually the beginning of the next cycle of life. It's the beginning of Am Yisrael's exodus and leaving Egypt. And Rus comes in the middle of the night, and she was asking for a curse. When she lied down at the end of Boaz's bed, Boaz is great tzaddik. But that's not what happens, because he's shaken and he's in the moment of pause. And instead of cursing her, he blesses her. It switches. And Dovid Hamelech says, thank you, Hashem, for what happened at midnight. Thank you for that pause. How do we get that pause? David gives us a little hint how we get the pause. Sometimes it's the music. When we hear a beautiful spiritual tune, it's a moment for us to pause. It's a moment for us to get out of ourselves, get out of our egos, and hear something else, to be out of that state and, hey, what is Hashem telling me? Where's Hashem bringing me? And what does Dovid Hamelech do when the Kinor wakes him up? He learns the Torah. And the Torah is, what is your will, Hashem, for me? In this moment of pause, what is your will for me? At Chatzos Laila, at midnight, I remember what happened. You switched things around. You switched it around in the times of Geulas Mitzrayim. You switched it around in the times of Geulas Haman, the Geula from that destruction. Everything switched in that moment. There was a moment of pause, and everything changed from there. Hashem comes in there in the moment of pause. How can I switch who I'm in the deepest darkness of sleep. I'm in the spiritual slumber. How do I get out of it? I wake up. I'm shaken out of my sleep by the music, and the music gives me pause. And then I turn to the Torah, and I try to understand, Hashem, what do you want from me? What is your will for me? The Torah is the place of finding out Hashem's will. And the king, he uses the Chatzaitzris, the Leviim, Moshe Rabbeinu, the king. Who is a king? Who is a true king of Am Yisrael? As we've spoken about previously, Les Migar Me'klum. He has nothing of his own. He's just a servant leader. He's just there to facilitate Am Yisrael's connection to Hashem. Dovid Hamelech just wants to build a Beis HaMikdash so that Am Yisrael can be connected to Hashem. Moshe Rabbeinu is the one who gives the Torah that Dovid Hamelech learns. And Moshe wants Am Yisrael to just serve Hashem. They're blowing the Chatzaitzris in the Mikdash, in the Mishkan, in the sanctuary, in the place of connection to Hashem, at the center of which is that box, the Ark of the Covenant, which has inside of that Aron HaBris, it has the Torah. It's the pause. It's the space with no space. It's the time with no time. It's the thought with no thought. And in that space, that's where Hashem's will comes in. That's where Nevuah comes down through between the Kruvim. Through that relationship. Through that leaving my spiritual slumber. And the Chatzaitzris, the trumpets, they blow and they pause. And the Shofar does a similar thing. It gives us pause. And then we say, Hashem, what is your will for me? Hashem, what do you want me to do? We look in the Torah and we say, what is it that Hashem expects from us? Powerful idea, powerful thought. And in this moment, in this pivotal moment in Jewish history where we are standing, where there's a pause in the middle of the night, and everything switches, everything changes, the world will never be the same. Let's be clear. The world will never be the same. Am Yisrael is really now, in this moment, entering a new place. I feel it. I don't know if you feel it. We feel it in Eretz Yisrael. I'm walking around and everyone's smiling. Something's going on. But there's a pause that happened in the middle of the night for us. And I'm sure it happened for you too. I'm sure it happened for you too. As soon as you found out, maybe you were davening for us. Maybe you were here experiencing it as well. But there was that pause. And there's a change. And there's a new direction for Am Yisrael in that pause. There's a new dedication. And we think of what's gone on in the last year and a half. And the blood that was spilled. And I don't want to minimize that. But such an incredible turnaround is going on. We're watching it with our own eyes. And we gotta appreciate it. We gotta say, Haidul Hashem Kitayv. Kila Elam Chazdoi. And I want to say, I don't know, this morning came into my head, this other pasuk, which sounds like it's not connected. Hine Matoiv Manoim Sheves Achim Gam Yochad. There's a brotherhood that happens. In the turnaround of Purim, we know about it. Like, there is joy and brotherhood. And Purim became a day of incredible connection between people. And there's a joy in this as well, of connection between each other. Wherever you might be, you're davening, you're praying on behalf of Am Yisrael, wherever we are. And I'm here in Eretz Yisrael praying for us here and praying for you wherever you are. And there's a deeper connection in that pause. In that place. We're trying to get to that place of getting out of our egos, getting out of ourselves, getting out of where our ego naturally leads us. And all of a sudden, boom, there's a moment of charad, a moment of fear, of being stunned. And something falls away. And something new has potential to come in. I want to bless you and ask you to bless me. And Hashem should help us to take this opportunity, this moment, take the chance to experience a pause, a hesach hadas, and appreciate that Hashem is doing something for Am Yisrael that's really awesome. Hashem should help us to pause in our own lives, pause in our own thoughts, pause in our own way of being, and say, Hashem, help me learn your Torah. Help me understand what you expect of me. And help me, from that pause, change. From that middle of the night, change. From that music that I hear, change. From that, recognize what happened. Gratitude. Thank you, Hashem. Thank you, Hashem. Help me change. Help me be more aligned with what you want from me, Hashem. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful Shabbos.
This podcast was made possible through the gracious donations of listeners like you. For more podcasts like this, please visit www.arigoldwag.com or search on iTunes Ari Goldwag.